Good afternoon. This is Nicole Ringgold. Today I'm going to show you this really fun project, schools of salmon swimming earrings. If you prefer to just make one salmon or all 6, that's entirely up to you. But I'll show you how to make this exact design. I start by saving an image from the internet and then printing it in black and white so that it's easier to saw out. I use rubber cement, glue it to 24 gauge sheet. So I saw out one entire fish, one of the fish body, and then one of the fish face for each fish that's going to be a part of the design. You'll use 24 gauge sheet, which means that there's a range, and you'll use basically between 5/0 and 7/0 saw blade. As I've explained in my previous videos, you'll want to hold your saw frame like it's a bird, and you don't want to choke the bird. That makes your sawing go a lot more smoothly. And be sure to wax your saw blade. So now you can see for this particular design, I have sawn out 6 full fish, including their tails. Like I said, if you choose to just do one fish, that's totally up to you. So given that it's rubber cement, it's easy to peel off. Just peel that off and rub off whatever residue from the rubber cement there might be. And then I've sawn out 6 fish bodies, basically minus all of the fins. Again, rub off the rubber cement, take off the paper. And then I've sawn out 6 of the faces, including that front fin closest to the face. And then essentially, this is what it's going to look like when they're put together. For those of you who don't know how I analyze silver, I look at the colors. And when you first purchase silver, even if it's dead soft, it's gray, which means it could be dirty. It could still be brittle. And so I always anneal it. And with the Little Smith torch, what that means is that you go to the regular temperature for that mass and add propane. So it's a soft flame. And you heat it until when you pull away, your piece is dark. From here, I'm going to sweat solder, easy solder, to the bottom side of the top 2 layers. So the face and then the body without the fins. I use Mighty Flux, which I get from Rio Grande, which I understand is similar to pricks. You don't have to pick solder like I am. I just find it easier once I've learned how to pick solder. It's just easy to move things around with my pick. But you can simply put the solder on your piece after you've fluxed and then heat your piece until it melts into a puddle. If your solder just balls and does not melt into a puddle, that just means that your mass is not hot enough. You need to heat the silver until the solder flows into a puddle. So here I'm using a Lion Punch Forge. Chris is awesome. It's a titanium quad, tiny, beautiful way to heat your silver from below. Everything is fluxed, bottom, top, but I'm mostly heating my piece from below to draw the solder that has been puddled down until it all flows. And just keep in mind that I flux everything that my torch touches. From there, you will pickle and then rinse it off. And here is a cutoff wheel. Sometimes it's called a separating disc. And I use this to grind down the edges to make sure that they are not jagged. Some of you might be amazing and have all of your lines line up perfectly, but that's not me. So I use this to make sure that the sides are well connected and blended together. From here, there are so many different ways to add texture. I could use repoussé tools. I could use my flex shaft to grind texture in, but I'm going to use silver dust. So what I've done is dip the fish in water, and then I'm taking silver dust. This has been accumulated with all of the carvings that I do over the years. And I drizzle it onto the fish where I want the texture. Put it on this nifty Lion Punch Forge titanium platform, and then I'm heating from below primarily. Generally, I wait until the silver dust turns black. I'm realizing that my torch is not hard enough, so I just turned it up. I know that it's stuck in place, but so I come to the top and I'm doing tiny, tiny circles until I see that silver dust blend into the back plate. These are cross-cut cylinder, and I will use the tiniest of the 12 pack. I don't know exactly what size it is, but it's the tiniest of that 12. And this is where I'm going to add details to all of the fins. You'll want to be sure that your pieces are annealed, because otherwise your bit will become dull. And if your piece is annealed, then it'll be soft as butter. As you can see, I'm anchoring not only the hand that's holding the piece, but I'm anchoring the hand that's holding my flex shaft on the table so that the bit doesn't skid all over the place. I'm right-handed, so I'm pulling it toward me. If you're left-handed, you'll want to draw it away from you. I'm moving my camera a little bit closer so that you can see what I'm doing. So I'm digging pretty deeply so that when I apply liver of sulfur, you can see the details. Once the fins are done, I'll use the Sharpie to mark exactly where I want the eye to be. I'll use a ball burr that's a little larger than the actual eye that I want to create. The size of the ball burr is entirely up to you. Once again, be sure that your piece is annealed, because otherwise your ball burrs can either skid across the surface, or when you try to dig into that silver, it's going to go dull. Again, I'm anchoring my hand that's holding the flex shaft on my table so that the piece doesn't, the bit does not skid all over the place. From here, the bit that you choose to drill, this is for 21 gauge wire. You may choose to use wire that's smaller, larger. I'm drilling into that eye socket. Gosh, that looks morbid. Sorry about that. Drilling into where I just used the ball burr. Now I'm going to use black silicone discs to soften the edges, make sure there's nothing sharp, pokey, that's uncomfortable when worn. Be sure to mask up for this and wear eye protection. This stuff is really dirty. Moving forward, I'm going to take 21 gauge wire. That's my choice. You can use something up to 18 gauge, maybe down to 24 gauge, and I'm balling the very tip of the wire. Take that balled wire and stick it into the eye socket that you've created. As you can see, I have fluxed the entire fish, as well as that pin that I'm sticking through the eye socket. If you prefer, you could just simply ball that pin on the other side so it works like a ball rivet. Or you could do what I'm doing, which is to turn it over, and I'm going to solder that pin in place. Here I'm going to flux everything. Looks like I already did that. This is easy solder that I'm pick soldering, and I'm going to heat the entire mass, the fish. The pin is the most vulnerable point. You don't want to just heat that. And once you see that yellow hue on your fish, you can sweat solder the solder to the pin. And now I'm heating the fish again, which means that the solder is going to want to move down the pin and into the hole. Okay, so from here you're going to want to take, I guess I'll call her the mother fish. And you'll drill holes the same gauge as the wire into where you want the kinetic fish, the swimming fish, to land. So I'm choosing to drill the holes in some of her fins, and then I'm adding pins to the noses of the fish that are following her. Using easy solder, I'm taking 21 gauge wire and I'm sweat soldering to the tip of each wire. Once I have the solder on the tip of the wire, I can heat the mass, and then as soon as I place the pin down on the fish, essentially the solder should flow as long as the mass is warm enough. If you find that the solder has not flown from the pin to the mass, that means your mass is not hot enough. Then you'll feed the pins through the holes of the mother fish. Of course, you can place them wherever you want. This is just where I felt that they seemed to swim together the most fluidly. That wire that you put through, you're going to want to snip it. It should not be too long. So snip it so that it's maybe 1/8 of an inch above the mother fish once it's threaded through. Once you turn your torch on, make sure it's super, super hot, because you're not necessarily going to be heating the entire mass. I mean, you need to heat it to an extent like this for the wire to ball. But if it's not hot enough, it's not going to ball. Heating the mass just a little bit more, ball that wire down. And if you can see what I'm doing, once you heat the mass, I'm changing my torch angle so it's heating across the mass. That way your previous solder joints are not vulnerable. I chose to solder on post ear wires, but of course that's your choice. And I like to use liver of sulfur for my finishing. And that's it. Let me know if you have any questions below in the comments. I do my best to respond. Thank you to Rio Grande for sponsoring my channel. Have a great night.